Yeah, doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
What's up, guys? What's going on? Sorry, we were just quoting something from the 40-Year-Old Virgin. Hilarious movie if you haven't seen it. So welcome to the podcast. This is the Odum and Andrea show. This is where we sit down together. Well, I sit down with my beautiful wife, Andrea, and we talk about a book and a person that has done something, I guess, inspiring, hopefully inspiring, or whatever. They've just done something.
It was something cool anyways.
Yeah, and
worthwhile of writing a book about.
Right, yeah. And we talk about it, and we see if there's anything that we want to incorporate into our lives, into our adventure planning, if you will. Mm-hmm. And today we're going to be talking about a book written by Elizabeth Blais. Is that how you pronounce it?
Edith, honey.
Why did I say Elizabeth?
I was like, Elizabeth isn't not even close.
Edith Blais, The Weight of Sand. My 45 days held... Oh, my goodness. My 450 days held hostage in the Sahara.
Yep.
Okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to be suggesting that I or anyone else get taken hostage.
Probably not.
But here's the title. I'll just hold it up there. Mm-hmm. So interesting. The Weight of Sand, my 450-day held hostage in the Sahara. So this should be interesting. I don't think there's anything else to say. Of course, if you like any of our podcasts, please check out our website, the Odum and Andrea. What is our website? So it's odumandandrea.com to check out any of our previous podcasts. Yeah, so with that, let's just get into it. Let's tell us about Edith. Oh my God, I can't say her name. Edith Blais, and how she, got into this sticky situation.
Yes.
I was gonna try to make some kind of sand dial kind of thing, but I'm like, I can't come up with anything.
So she's actually Canadian. She's from Quebec. And so I don't know if would change how you pronounce her last name, because I'm sure it's a French pronunciation.
Blais.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So she is just like hooked on traveling, like just absolutely hooked on it. She's like one of these people that they're addicted to it, and she just has this wanderlust, just kind of goes wherever the money is, jobs are, that sort of thing. She's not afraid to.
And when did she start traveling?
It didn't say what age she was, but I would assume and I don't even know if she went to university or anything like that, but it just sounds like she's been traveling.
She's been traveling for a while.
For a long time. So she
knows the ins and outs of traveling, especially being alone and being a single female.
Yeah, and traveling. Yeah. And so she said, once I had a taste of adventure, I was hooked. Mm-hmm. And so she was really interested in discovering new cultures, meeting new people, and seeing new landscapes. I feel like she's kind of hippie-ish in that way. Her hair is dreadlocked with beads and stuff in it, and there was one instance where she was in California, and she was gonna sleep on the beach, just in a tent, and then the police came and were like, no, you can't sleep on the beach, it's illegal. And then so she had to sleep at one of the homeless encampments.
No, she couldn't just go to a hospital or anything like that? Or did she literally have no money to...
Yeah, I don't know, but that was just she had to sleep on the pavement kind of thing with homeless people.
When was this?
I'm not sure. In the maybe 2012 or something like that.
Are you just guessing?
No.
Educated guess.
Educated guess.
Yeah. Well, it might fit right in California now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So she does all this different traveling, and so she what she kind of does is she goes to Central America and down the west coast of California and stuff in the summer, and then she comes, in the winter, and then in the summer she comes back to Canada.
You mean the west coast of the United States?
Yeah.
On west coast, or just western central? You said Central America.
Central
but you
America,
mean
also
Central U.S.
Also the west coast of California,
but also Central America, Colombia.
Yeah. So she's done tons of traveling there. She's been to all the different countries in Central America, it sounds like, and she talks a lot about not a lot, but she talks a little bit about how much she loved it, learning meeting new people and learning new things there. So
of course.
So in 2014, she's in California and she meets this guy. She's kind of working, I think, on some sort of farming type thing. And she meets this guy from Togo. So I didn't even know that Togo was a country. So did you know that Togo is a country? in Africa.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, no, me neither. So I had to look it up on the map. And so it's in...
There's lots of countries in Africa.
There's a ton of countries in Africa. But I guess the reason I didn't really know about this one is because it's like super, super tiny. And so it's right beside Ghana. And then Burkina Faso is north of it.
Okay.
So it's just this teeny tiny little country kind of sandwiched in.
Yeah. What's the population?
I don't know. So she meets this guy from Togo, and
They met where?
In California on this kind of like farm type thing. And so his dream is to develop this like self-sufficient farm producing food and renewable energy. And he also wants to found like a local ecological center and then plant like...
Could this get any more cliche to the hippie Californian? Like, we're just going to have this one little piece of land and it's going to be everything. Self-sustaining energy, food, drugs, it's all here.
And so, but he wants to do it in Togo.
Right.
In
okay.
Togo.
Yeah. Sure.
So, and she falls in love with this idea and she loves the thought of it. And so also part of what he wanted to do was like have people like her that just kind of want to travel and experience different things come and like help out and teach them the culture and about like farming and all of these sustainability and all this different things. And so for her, this is like, she loves this idea because she's really like the materialistic stuff it's not her, and she wants to have this kind of like simpler existence. Yeah,
it really sounds like I totally hear that. It sounds like this idealistic idea of what the world is like, but then reality sometimes sets in a little bit, being like, well, maybe the world can't just be all like just living off the land individually, whatever. There's so many. Anyways, this is.
So she
can almost see how where this is going.
So but she admits this. She says, "My vision was a touch romantic, but that's just the way I am. I've always been carried along by dreams and nourished by reality." So she admit, she can see that's
fair.
But she just like loves this idea of living in tune with nature. Africa's always been a continent that she's wanted to visit, and she feels that kind of pull of going back to like the roots of humanity, right? Like where we all kind of started, where humanity started, right?
Yeah,
so it's very, very romantic.
It's very romantic. I mean, Africa is a huge place. I mean, there's so many differences and so many different. It's not like this one, like it's just this one spot. I mean, there's desert, there's rainforest, there's all kinds of different. Environments and people and whatever.
And if we're Togo's not even not even the cradle of humanity, right?
Right.
Like that's So she then so they're talking about it, and I don't know what happens, but then she goes back to Canada and she ends up, this is now in 2016, and she is working in Jasper in Alberta. And
what year is this? Sorry?
2016.
Okay.
And so she just falls in love with Jasper. She just loves it. So she's working a couple different jobs. One's like, I think like at a hotel, kind of one of the nice hotels there. She's just kind of working there. Yeah. And so she was going to go to British Columbia to work, I think to do like cherry picking or something in the Okanagan, but her boss...
Like actual picking cherries?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not like just cherry picking. And just doing nothing. But anyways, so her boss convinces her to stay, and offers her offers her to stay and more money. Not more money, but just like offers to continue to pay her, whatever. So she ends up like staying there in the winter, and she just loves it. Yeah. And so this is when she meets an Italian guy. So
this is another guy. Whatever happened to the African?
We'll get back to the other guy. So she meets this Luca. His name's Luca, and she says,
it's like every story that we're reading from now on, it's like there's going to be a story. It's going to be of a woman, and it's like, and then she meets this guy. It's like, oh, here we go. Here we go.
No, so she meets this Luca guy, and he's, like I said, from Italy, and they kind of have like an on again, off again relationship. Over the few years. So they work together in Jasper for a while. They also kind of travel together as well.
These are all younger people, I would imagine.
So she goes to Italy and meets his family, and they travel in Central America together. And then she introduces him to her friend, the guy from Togo.
So that was just that guy from Togo was just a friend. I thought it was more than just a
No,
friend.
no, he's just a friend. Just a
Oh,
friend.
he's always just a friend?
Just a friend, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So with Luca, like I said, it's on again, off again. And so she introduces him to this guy. The guy tells of his big grand vision to happen in Togo. And so Luca wants to be part of it too. And so they get, really interested. And Luca says, well, why don't we go to Italy? We'll get a car in Italy and we'll drive this car from Italy all the way to Togo.
So you'd have to drive
Yes.
all the way out of Europe into Asia. Well, how would you even get there?
Yeah.
I guess you can cross. Where can you cross?
Okay.
I don't even know where you can cross.
This is why it's funny for me. Cause
Yeah, you can't cross.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Through ferry?
Yeah.
Through ferry?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, is Africa attached? Yes, it is. No. Yes, it is. Is it attached to Asia? It is, isn't it? Show me a map. Show me a map.
You're so
I totally
funny.
can't remember.
Okay.
Put me on the spot. But it is
So-
attached. You could drive. It is land. It isn't a floating island like Australia.
No,
Yeah,
so
it's totally attached.
it's a little bit, but it's attached in the Middle East.
Yeah, to
not-
Iraq, right? Is it Iraq?
No.
Let me see. Can I see a map? Yeah, there we go. Oh,
Yeah.
Israel, Lebanon. Oh, okay. Iraq's right up there. Yeah, right. Right. That's what I was thinking.
It's always entertaining for me to explain.
Oh, okay. Oh, so they're going down through Spain then?
Yes.
And Morocco. Oh, okay. Yeah, see?
Yes.
The Mediterranean Sea. Of
Yes.
course. Yeah,
Yes.
no, I'll admit my geography needs to be. Like, I need to. Yeah, I used to love it too.
That's
Looking
why,
at
I
maps
was
is awesome, but
surprised. I was
just-
like, "Oh,
it's
this is
been
a
so
country I've
long.
never even heard of before. Like, what the heck? It's crazy."
Right.
Yeah, so there's the Strait
I
of
wanna find out where it
Gibraltar.
is.
So the Strait of Gibraltar that is between Spain and Morocco, it's like so tiny. Like it's only a couple of kilometers, I think. It's not
Sorry, where are you talking about? Like right here? Whoop.
between Spain and Morocco. Yeah, that little Strait of Gibraltar, that's what
Right.
it's called.
That's funny. This is where there's the UN thing in Portugal.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that's what they're going to do. And so they plan out their whole route. And she actually has an uncle that lives somewhere in Africa. She didn't say where, but I know
so vague.
she didn't say where, but she gets some advice from him too about the route to take because
And how to avoid certain areas.
So they leave from Italy on November 19th.
Hope they got lots of bribe money.
They leave
Yeah, I was
November
gonna
19th.
say, where is this headed? Of course,
They leave November 19th, 2018. So they drive through Italy, France, Spain. They take the ferry, like I was saying, to Tangier in Morocco.
And are they just traveling? Is she just traveling on a Canadian passport, or does she have any other kind of
She must,
passport?
yeah. So she has a Canadian passport. It's about the visas, though. So
You need to get.
I
visas
don't know
and get everything.
anything about what
How
type
they
of
prepared
visas. No, there's only one thing with the visas that is important.
Because I'm pretty sure you need to have a visa for every country that you're going to,
Yeah,
right? Like,
I have no idea how it works.
Like if you get to it, you can't just get in there. Well, I guess it depends on what you. I guess it depends on what you're doing. Because we can go to the United States. We just drive down and be like, we're just going shopping.
Yeah,
They'll let you in. You don't need a visa for that, right?
Yeah.
So
So
if you're driving through, maybe you don't need a visa just to go through.
yeah. So
It would be good to plan ahead.
I
to
think
talk
they
to
did.
whatever
They
embassies
did,
that
and
you
then
need
they had their way that they were going to go. So when they were going, so they were crossing into Morocco. They're going to go through Morocco through I don't know how to pronounce that. Mauritania.
Yeah, Mauritania,
So they were going to go through there.
Mauritania.
Yeah. So they were going to go Morocco through there into Mali, and then through Burkina Faso, and then into Togo. That was their plan.
Okay, so it's pretty close to Nigeria.
Yeah, it is really close to Nigeria. So that was the plan. So they talk about like going through some of the places. So there's this one piece of land between Morocco and Mauritania, and there's like no roads, and it's almost like a no man's land. Like I think there's some sort of disputed land there, and there's even still like landmines like underneath the ground. So they basically are following this like one car the whole way. It was just sounded like it was like a little kind of scary.
Right.
So
But there's a road through this quote unquote no man's land. But
well, kind of, but they made sure they were lucky enough to.
there's this desert area too. I imagine. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So then they get to one spot.
What kind of car are they driving?
Yeah, I forget what it is. It's not a great car though.
No?
Like it's no. They don't have a lot of money.
That's good. You don't want to be driving around in like a Mercedes or whatever.
Yeah, no. So they go, I forget what country they in. So they're in Mali, and the roads are so bad, and everything there, the bureaucracy is crazy. So they're trying to be able to cross into Mali, and they eventually meet this guy who lives in Burkina Faso. He's a French guy. And he says to them, if you can't make it on the roads, if you can find like little villages along the way, and you can just talk to like the village chief or whatever, and they'll let you stay the night. You can just put your tent up, just make sure you get permission, and everyone's usually pretty friendly. So this is what happens because the roads are so bad. It takes them longer to get places than they think.
Right.
So they sit and they talk to this chief, and they just learn all about the village, and they have a meal, and they're able to sleep there, and just like she loves it too because she's meeting new people, learning about new cultures and all that kind of stuff. So then they get into Burkina Faso, and so this French guy was like, when you get to Burkina Faso, like look me up and like come over, have supper, you can meet my family.
Do you mean he's an actual French guy from France?
Yes.
Or just someone that speaks French?
No, he's a French guy. No, he's
countries that just speak French in Africa. Right?
Oh, of course, because most of these countries were French colonies, yes. So, but no, he's actually from France.
Yeah.
And so he has a wife and a family in Burkina Faso.
He's just living there.
So he said, like, look me up. And so they only had transit visas for Burkina Faso, which meant they had like 3 days to get across it and to get into Togo.
Yeah.
And so what they wanted was they did want a visa that was valid for 90 days, but it was too expensive for them. So then the French guy was just like, well, there's another visa that you can get that is, I don't even know what it's called, but it would allow them to stay in Burkina Faso longer, and it would be valid there in Togo, the Ivory Coast, and in Niger.
Yeah, well, they should have done that a long time ago, not just while they're actually in there.
So
when they only have 2 days left or whatever.
Yeah, so they do a detour. They go to the capital in Burkina Faso, and they try to get one, and the guy's a dick and says, no, get the fuck out of my country. And so they don't have a lot of time. And I don't know why she says this, but she's like, well, why don't I want to spend more time before we go to Togo, I think is maybe why. And she's like,
when someone there tells you to get the fuck out of your country, you get the fuck out of the country.
So, but that's the point is, so instead of going straight to Togo, she's like, well, I want to take a detour and go to Benin, which is the country beside Togo. So
which they don't have a visa for.
So, yeah. So, I don't know why. So, that's Benin. So, they're Burkina Faso, and that's Benin. So, she wants to go there.
They're going.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
So, because they don't have a lot of time and they're changing their plans and everything, they are not checking what's going on at the border of Burkina Faso and Benin.
In certain terms of if there's any conflicts or anything going on?
Yes. Or if there's any security issues that they should know about, that travelers should know about, they don't check, which usually they have been the whole time they've been crossing. So now we're at December 17th, and they're crossing into Benin, and they're going across what's called the W National Park. It's like an elephant park as well, I guess. And so they're getting to the border with Benin. They're about 50 kilometers away, and the road's really, really bad. And so they see a truck on the side of the road, and there's a bunch of guys in there, and they kind of are trying to be kind of friendly as they see these guys, and are just like, oh, like, do the roads get better, like, up ahead? And they're like, yeah, they get better. 5 kilometers on, there's 6 men with Kalashnikovs and turbans waiting for them. And so 4 of them leap out. They get Luca. They take him out because he's driving. And then they get her, and they're trying to separate them to take them away and put them on the back of motorbikes to take them away. And so Luca's like losing his shit and saying, you can't separate us. He's like, that's my wife. So he lies to say, hoping that will make them, because they're Muslim, hoping that'll make them keep them together. And also because there's like strict rules in Muslim religion, obviously, about 2 people, not if they're a man and woman and they're not married, not traveling alone. Like, there's so many rules, right?
Sure.
So even an example of this, which is interesting, is, Stephanie Buttermore and Jeff Nippard.
Yeah.
So they're not married. They went to Egypt. This was like years ago for one of her friends' weddings. And they're not married, but they bought rings and just said they were so that they could stay in the hotel room together.
Otherwise they wouldn't have been able to? Interesting.
Yeah.
Would they ask you for that? Like, people can't just stay in the hotel
don't
room?
know.
What if they're just friends?
I don't know. So, but even they had to do that there. So I think it was a smart move on his part to say, like, we're married. So a translator told them that, well, we've been waiting specifically for you. We knew that an Italian and a Canadian were coming this way, so we've been waiting for you. So I don't know, and the book doesn't say how they knew. Known? And so I wonder, I don't know, maybe them stopping in that village or maybe them stopping in the capital. Someone found out. I don't know.
It could just be that someone sees them. I mean, it could be.
But how do you know that they're Italian and Canadian?
By listening to them speak.
Maybe.
I think Italians and Canadians have pretty distinct accents when you're traveling around.
But she's French, remember?
Still a Canadian accent.
Yeah, so I don't know.
And again, the Italian accent as well is pretty distinct.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it could have been someone they talked at whatever embassy or whatever in the capital. I mean, they're probably talking to lots of people because, like you're saying, they're friendly and they want to talk to all kinds of people.
Yeah.
So somebody there spots them and says, "Hey, well, these guys are coming," and they probably start talking about where they're going and kind of like, "Oh yeah, we're just doing this, we're just doing that, or whatever." And so it just takes that one person to, like, again, most of this stuff is shit I get from the movies too, right? So I don't really know how people kidnap people.
Yeah.
But I just, like, that stupid movie with Liam Neeson, right? It's just like, it's just you get people that are friendly that are just like, they're kind of like spotters that are like, their job is to kind of find people that are traveling, that are vulnerable.
That's
and
true.
I've heard of this for like actual people, like I want to go to Thailand.
Yes.
And that's where I want to go. And I've heard people talking about Thailand. It's like, well, there's certain people or whatever that you have to be careful because they're going to try to lure you away to get you to a specific spot or whatever, right? Not for kidnapping, but just exploit you or for money or whatever, right? Yeah. So you just need to be careful where there's a lot of places where there's tourists or whatever where there's people that are out there to do for nefarious things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not as bad as, kidnap or whatever and holding hostage, but even just for, trying to perform scams or whatever. So you have to be careful about who you talk to and what you say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially,
Yeah. So who knows where that happened, but so maybe that person was lying. Who knows, right? Maybe it could have just been those truckers those people that were in the truck ahead. Maybe they just radioed ahead to their buddies down the road, says, "Hey, these guys are coming."
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So the translator tells them, "Well, we're taking you to the leader, and it's going to take about 3 days to get there." And so she said this was like the first of many lies that we were told in this whole thing, because it didn't take 3 days; it took like 20 on these bikes. And so he told them that they were the Mujahideen, soldiers fighting in the way of Allah, and they were supposed to help them with their mission. And so originally she just thought, oh, these are just like second-rate kind of bandits. They're just kind of disorganized. They're on these stupid motorbikes. They're just gonna call our families for money. So that's kind of what they thought at the time. Mm-hmm. And then they were given like clothes to wear as well and turbans, and so they almost kind of dressed her up like a man. So because you see like a white woman being taken, like that's gonna raise some suspicions, right? So whenever
cover them up.
And so whenever she could, as they were riding, she would like let her scarf, like, because they gave them scarves to cover too. Yeah. She would let it go off and like try or get her turban off just to let people see her, almost kind of leave like breadcrumbs that she was here. And that's a weird thing to see in these places, is this white woman. Yeah. So she would try and do that. And then the other thing she said is sometimes, like, because the bandits, they would come and go like on the motorbikes. It was like a big group of them. Eventually there was like 15 motorbikes and people traveling together to get them to this leader. And so they didn't realize that she was a woman. And so there would be like definite awkwardness when they would go up to greet her and then realize she was a woman, because you're not allowed to touch them. And so she was like, she said it made them more human to her in a way, because instead of just seeing them as captors, seeing that like weird embarrassment that they felt, so it kind of humanized them in a little bit. So I thought that was interesting. And she just said it it made them seem more vulnerable because she was able to really unsettle them just by being female. So I just thought that was an interesting thing for her to say. So so then Luca kind of loses his shit at one point because he's like, where the fuck are you taking us? Like, what is going on?
Are they like always at gunpoint kind of thing? Because they're traveling through cities where,
well,
I'd imagine, right?
No, they're trying not to. It ends up they're traveling along the Niger River. And so they're trying to be incognito and not go through bigger cities. They're probably going through like villages because they have to eat, right? And have a safe place to sleep. But I think it's just like these little villages. And so people don't really notice much. So they're not usually at gunpoint. I mean, there's guns, like the threat of the guns for sure. So,
but there's no real chance of escape?
No, because they're just surrounded all the time with like all these guys. And so Luca loses it and he's just like, where are you taking us? Like tell us what's going on, because they were just given no information. And
why would you? I know. It's not like you're at a job where I demand to know what's going on. Yeah. You are kidnapped and you're taken hostage.
Yes.
Like you cannot demand.
Yeah. So Luca, he just like, he loses it and he's like, where are you taking us? And then they say, well, we're taking you to northern Mali in the Sahara. And so this is when they realize, okay, these are not just some randos, like this is serious stuff, and they're going to maybe reach out to our governments to get them to pay the ransom or to do some sort of prisoner exchange. So this is when I wanted to tell you a little bit, because I thought this was actually kind of interesting, a little bit about Mali and how we even got to this point where people are kidnapping people. So Mali's actually really interesting, and I didn't know this until I read about it, but the Mali Empire at its peak was like one of the wealthiest countries on earth. And there's this one emperor.
So when? What time?
So 1300s.
1300s.
Yeah.
That's like is that during the Dark Ages?
I'm not sure.
No, Dark Ages were like, or was that the Age of Enlightenment? I can't remember. What the age is.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
So they're one of the wealthiest countries on earth. And even it said the emperor, Mansa Musa, is believed to be maybe one of the most wealthiest individuals in history. So I found that really interesting. I had no idea. And
what was the country rich for?
I'm not really sure because they don't get into it about why he was rich, but even like
lots of gold, or
like it must have been, but they were also like a center of Islam. Timbuktu, which is in Mali, is an actual place. And it was like a renowned place of learning. There was like a university there, one of the oldest in the world. Yeah. So it was huge. But in 2012, so obviously there was like the French. It was a French colony. I know. We're skipping way ahead. But then the French came, and there was a scramble for Africa, and they took over Mali. So in 2012, there was a big conflict that broke out in northern Mali with the Tuareg people, and they wanted to be independent from Mali and have like their own area.
So a civil war.
Yeah. And then there was
maybe not official.
Not official. I would call it a civil war. You could call it that. It's not referred to by that like on Wikipedia or anything, but there was like a military. Was like a coup d'etat at that time too, because someone killed, I think, the president or whatever at the time, because they were just like, well, you're not dealing with this properly, so you need to go. So then what happened was they won for a little while, and they got the land, and they declared independence of this land. But then they had like Al-Qaeda and these other Islamic extremist groups helping them, and then of course they turned on them, and now
this is ours now.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of the history, because it's all these jihadis, and of course like there's so many different jihadi groups, and there's all kinds of infighting, and sometimes they get absorbed into other groups and they fight each other, and it's just like a big shit show. And so that's kind of what they get in the middle of, is it's just these different groups that are kind of fighting, and they get transferred from kind of like one group to another group.
Right.
Like it's complicated.
So they're all like, is it jihadi? Is that the actual term of somebody who's trying to embark on a holy war.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's just different organizations, terrorist groups, whatever you want to call it, right? That are vying for power or whatever. And so you're saying that they're just getting switched from kind of group to group. Like they all have a similar goal.
Yeah.
But they still, they all have their own ways of getting about it too. So they fight, but not really fight. In a way,
they do, like, there's infighting for sure, but I think it's just like who's the top dog, right? Like, I think that's part of what it is. And so,
but is it like, would you say it's like cartel fighting?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
like
there's
blood. There's like
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's a really good
different cartels versus jihad. That they're all like
Yeah.
I mean, cartels are drug runners, whatever, but these guys are like death to the West or whatever the hell their goal is.
Yes. And then the point too is that they recruit young men either forcibly or just because like there's nothing there for them. There's no like economic opportunities for them. Yep. So it's like they have nothing else to do. And I think even
it sounds like no matter where you are, it's just like you target poor or vulnerable individuals and you just recruit them into something that seems that it's larger than themselves, give them a sense of family, community, whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was what happened. And then
it's interesting. Just to dive a little bit more into that. It's like you listen to that guy, I think it's whatever his name is, something Davis, the guy who would not infiltrate, but he'll talk to members of the KKK and would get them to like reverse them. So it's like a black guy that would talk to these clan members and get them just through dialogue and understanding that like, they would convert them not to be from the KKK. Yeah. And then there's guys like Majid Nawaz, who talks about it as well too. And it's like, you see very similar forms of indoctrination and how they get people to join their groups. I think if you listen to these types of people, it's really fascinating to know that whether you're talking about a religious thing or you're talking about like a racial thing or even like a feminist thing, it's like any kind of cause, that extreme cause, it's the same kind of psychological techniques to get people in. So it's really, really fascinating. Well,
even like with cults too, like I've listened to a bunch of stuff on cults and the psychological stuff, like it's very, very fascinating. Yeah.
And it's almost like the number one thread is like get people separated from their friends and family and to have them not listen to any external
100%
sources. Anyways,
so it's
just why, if you leave, anyways, it's not getting into details here, but it's very fascinating.
It's very fascinating. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a background. And then the whole point too, the New York Times had an article in 2014 saying that like kidnapping people and holding people for ransom is like a huge business for them. Mm-hmm. And this was back in 2014 saying like they were making like $125 million from all the kidnapping. So
it's per year.
Yeah, I think so. So it's
because people would mostly pay because they want to get their. Mm-hmm. That's interesting because I don't know. It's like, do people mostly pay? And like, who are they blackmailing? Are they blackmailing family or are they blackmailing like governments?
Well, I think governments or
aren't governments like, we don't negotiate with terrorists? Yeah. And then case closed, or do they? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll find out a little bit here.
So, so it does get kind of like confusing because there's so many different people and because they don't speak French necessarily and so they don't know what's going on.
Sorry, who's speaking French? The people that are kidnapping them?
No, they don't speak French. Yeah, so they don't have an interpreter for.
Oh, they all speak. So all speak French. Well, the Italian speaks Italian too, I would imagine.
Honeys, they don't speak French. The only Luca and Edith speak French, but none of the other guys that have kidnapped them do.
Right.
So I'm just saying, sometimes it gets confusing.
Because they're all speaking Arabic is their language, I would imagine.
Arabic, and there's a couple other like local dialects that they speak as well.
But no one else. Yeah. So you're saying the people that are being kidnapped and the kidnappees don't speak the same language.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying something else. So what's interesting too is she's vegetarian at this point.
Not anymore.
Yeah. So she goes for 3 months with just eating like the rice or the pasta or whatever that they have. And so, but what they'll do is like, they'll give them like the shittiest pieces of meat. So like they'll kill a goat or they'll kill a sheep and they just get like the offal, like OFFAL, which is just like the intestines and just like the leftover shit. So that's what they are given to eat. And so at this point, when they're in the Sahara, they're given relative freedom to move around the camp. But she says to watch time go by without being able to change things, it was difficult to be in this like state of limbo and not even really knowing what's going on.
Right,
Have they contacted, like, are we being held for ransom? Like, what the hell is happening?
Was there ever any talk of trying to figure out how to escape?
No. They did. Yeah, they did a couple times, but they're just surrounded all the time. And because they're in the middle of the fucking Sahara, what do you do, right? Where are you going to go? And you don't have any water. Like, that's the big thing too. So,
so how big would this village be that they're in?
They're not in a village at this point. They're just in the middle of the desert.
Also, they're in like a compound.
No, not even. They set up tents for them, and they are just in tents on the Sahara.
So them and how many other people?
So like 10.
There's only 10 people.
So it's like 10 guys guarding them. Yeah.
And they're just in the, okay.
Yeah, in the middle of the desert.
Well, where do they get these goats and everything?
Well, they'll travel to a village or something and get something and then bring it back.
Like
to
one
where
or two guys will travel and bring stuff back.
Yeah, and they're in spots where there's like trees, these, I don't know how to say it, probably acacia trees that are in the desert. And acacia. Yeah, that's it. So they're at these places. So they're still together at this point, and they decide to go on a hunger strike. And so she says, our scope of action was limited, and fasting was one thing we could do. So they fast for so long, and it's like pissing them off, like pissing the captors off, because they're like, well, we have to take care of you because otherwise you're worthless. And so you're not freaking eating. So by day 22 of the fast, they're like, well, we're just not going to give you water and see how long you last without water. They end up lasting 5 days without water.
Yeah, that's about how long you can go.
Yeah. So then on day 25, a new guy comes up who speaks French and explains to them. He's like, well, we'll shoot a video and we're going to pass it on to your families. And so please eat. We'll do this in exchange for you eating, kind of thing. And so they do. They start eating again.
I'd be like, shoot the video first, then we eat.
Yeah. So
but anyways,
the family never received the video.
Yeah, of course
not. So then they get separated. And they're both freaking out about being separated.
Well, there's 3 people here.
No. Luca and Edith, the 2 of them get separated.
Yeah, but there's a 3rd guy too, right?
Oh, no.
There's only the 2 of them?
Yeah.
But I thought it was Luca.
The guy from Togo?
Yeah.
No. They were going to meet him in Togo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it was 3 guys the whole time.
I said it was only the 2 of them traveling from Italy.
Okay.
Yeah. So all she can think about, and like the way that the guys talk to them when they're separating them, it makes her think she's going home. And so all she can think about is she's going home, but Luca's still there. How do I get him out? And so she's like losing her shit. And so so they were kidnapped in December. So this is in March when they're separated, in March 2019 when they're separated. So then they take her to another camp, and there's 3 women at this camp, and
like other captives.
Yeah, and they've been held. 2 of them have been held for 2 years, and another one has been held for 3 years. And so they kind of tell her story. I think they were, one of them for sure, but I'm not sure about the other 2, were like nuns, and they were just there for humanitarian. And the one nun was helping at an orphanage, helping like children and babies and everything like that. 2 of the nuns they're all old. Like the one nun that she talked to the most was 70, and she had like a huge breast tumor. And so, but the other 2 were like psychologically just like not there. The one was
because they've been held captive for
so long. The one, she was like hallucinating and had all kinds of crazy stuff. So, but the one nun, Elizabeth, she showed so much kindness to Edith, and Edith was talking about how like she loved to write poetry, and so then the nun like encouraged her like, well, you should write, and you can have my pens and you can have my paper and just like write poetry. And so she says, her kindness showed me my own door, the gift that would allow me to fly away, to let my soul out of the cage where time dragged on. And so how the book is written is at the beginning of each chapter is one of her poems
that she wrote while she was there.
While she was there, and she wrote like obviously like hundreds and hundreds of poems. And so she lived with these women from being taken away from Luca from March to August, and they were always being moved, taken to different camps, just being moved around, but they were like never given enough water. But they learned how to like kind of cook, I guess, in the desert, because they had to do like all their cooking themselves, but at least it kind of gave them something to do.
Right.
And so, but just like seeing like the kindness between all four of them.
Well, that would make sense though, because I mean, you're in prison together, basically, right? Like you have to, and it's worse than prison, I would imagine.
Yes. And so they helped each other. So she would take, the one nun would do like embroidery with whatever she could. And so Edith would take out, she had like little like embroidery thread things in her hair because of her dreads. And so she would take them out and give them to the nun, and they would share blankets. And then some birds would come to stay in their tent. And so they would like take care of these birds. So at least it was something. And she says, life, like the desert, our life as captives was 99% desolation and 1% abundance, just enough to get us through another day. So, and it's interesting too, she talks a lot about like the cycles of the desert and going through the rainy period and the storms and all of the different things that she saw. So then after 5 months of being with the women, she's taken away again. And so what's happening is this trip got her hopes up. She thought she was going to be either going to go home or be reunited with Luca in some way. And she says, the trip did get my hopes up. Life in captivity is so predetermined that every time something out of the ordinary happens, the brain goes into overdrive. So you're used to just this like monotony of every day. Yeah. And so you think something's happening and you're going to get out or something. But then she also felt numb, and she said, I didn't give a shit about anything. Like I felt amorphous, inert, and empty shell. My life no longer belonged to me. I no longer had the strength to fight against oblivion. I was their hostage, both a treasure and a nobody. So she was held with these people, and they would alternate each month a different group of men that would like watch her, I guess. And so, but she was all by herself because she wasn't allowed to be in camp with them, only for sleeping. So she just had this like one little tree that she kind of stayed under, and they made her like lay down all the time. Like she wasn't allowed to walk around or anything like that because they were afraid she was going to be seen. So she's like stuck laying down in this hot tent for most of the time. So like her muscles atrophied and all of this, like it was just so boring, like just so like the monotony and the boredom, I can't even begin to imagine it. It would drive me crazy. And her only distraction, like when she was with the women, was to like, at least you could like cook your own meals, and she couldn't even do that. They would just bring her.
And why did they take her to this place?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure why they took her away. She didn't say. But then she did remember it occurred to her to do yoga to help her muscles. I was gonna say, just do some push-ups or do something to keep moving. That's the thing, is like the minute she would do something, like she couldn't, because they would see her and then like tell her to stop or whatever. So
but yoga, at least it looks like you might be laying down, but it's like a stretch or whatever.
So she was able to do that, and she said it was like the one thing that helped her from like not completely losing her mind. And then at one point they do give, I don't even know why they ended up giving this to her, but she does get like a letter from friends and 3 pictures of like her with her family. And so then it's like they really kind of take an interest in her, and I think it humanizes her more to the captors, because there's one picture especially with her and her dad, and so they keep where is I have who's no getting idea. This letter to her? I have no idea.
So does her family know that she's been kidnapped?
Well, I don't know.
What are they thinking?
I don't know. She doesn't really say much about that. And like,
does anybody know? Because it's months and months and months.
Yeah, so they do. They must. The government does know, and the Canadian government. Yeah, and they were trying to find her. They were doing some sort of work trying to find her. So, yeah. So then she's taken to another new place, and the tree that she's in, it's underneath, it's not 100% sand, and it's like has some kind of like organic material in it, so it's almost like maybe clayish almost. So she's able to add like water to it and then make sculptures, because again, it's just anything to keep your mind occupied. So she makes this sculpture of a man's face, and then she has like a sun around it too, and she just kind of calls it like her sun god or whatever, just to keep her busy.
Wilson.
So the captors don't like it. They're pissed that she's done this. But what's interesting is what they're more pissed about is the sun. They don't like the sun. It's not necessarily a man's face. It's the sun. Apparently you're not supposed to make an image of it or something. So the one guy comes over and he's really nice to her and it indicates to her to get rid of the sun. And so she's like, cool, I'll do that. There's this other guy who's a big dick to her all the time. He makes her like only look at his feet and never make eye contact. Like he's such a jerk to her. And so he gets pissed because it's like she's listening to this guy, but not to him. And so then she just kind of loses her shit and destroys her sculpture, and then she throws her bowl indicating like, I'm going on a hunger strike. And so they get nervous and they're like, well, fuck, you can't go on a hunger strike because we need you in good condition. And so it's like, yeah, they have to preserve the market value of their property. And so eventually another guy comes, and she calls him Crazy Eyes. She has like throughout the book, she has different names for these different guys.
Yeah.
And so he says, look, you have to eat. And if you eat, then I'll show you a video of Luca. And so she starts eating. And then he also says, you also have to convert to Islam as well. You have to do that. And so he says,
why? You know, it's not even real.
Yeah. So, and so when he speaks in perfect French, and he says, you are a disbeliever and you are an animal in the eyes of God if you refuse Islam. And then, so she's trying to like reason with him and saying, well, like, I do believe in a God. Like, like to me, like God is life, and you know, this like very spiritual version. And she's like,
they don't want to hear that stuff.
Yeah. She's like, no.
Nobody want to hear your hippie stuff.
Yeah. And so she's just like, I don't understand. Like, so, and he's like explaining to her, like, you're going to go to hell if you like, and that's how if you don't convert, you're going to go to hell. And she's like, I don't understand how, like, I'm going to hell, but you've taken me away from my whole life and you're cool. Like, she's just like, you know, it just doesn't make sense to her. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to anybody.
Well, of course it doesn't make any sense, because all that kind of talk is just bullshit, right? Like you can commit all kinds of, like, how could you do this to another human being? I can't even comprehend it. And to think that you're like a good guy,
yeah, I know,
and that I'm going to go to heaven just all just because you just believe a certain thing.
Yeah.
Like if that's actually true, well, fuck it, I don't even want to believe in that type of God, because like, yeah, that's not someone that's totally supposed to be there for you and caring and all that, whatever, all the good stuff that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I know. So then she does get the video from Luca. They do keep their word that way, which is surprising. And but
who knows when that video was shot or whatever. But yeah.
So he says that he's okay, and but he's converted to Islam. And he says in the video that like he's learning Arabic and he's reading the Quran, and he says it's like something to keep him busy. And so she's really surprised.
True.
She's really surprised that he's converted, but she thinks, hearing him say, well, like it's keeping, like I'm able to read and like learn something, it's keeping me busy. And so
it'll occupy the mind.
Exactly.
Right? It's something to learn and keep you from going crazy.
Well, and so
even if you don't believe it, right? It's like, yeah, sure, fine.
So she thinks, she's like, well, maybe I should too. Like I'd have literally nothing to lose at this point. You might get
treated better.
And that's what she thinks. And then she's thinking, well, maybe I'll be able to go where Luca is. Maybe we can be reunited if I can convert or whatever. So they're pushing this on her anyways, because the guy's like, you have to convert. So she does. And yeah, they completely change how they treat her. It's just, they treat her so much nicer.
Better food?
No, it's the same, because they're all eating the same food. So so they teach her Arabic and she teaches them French. And what does she say too? But she doesn't like what she had always said in the beginning of their captivity was like she wouldn't convert to Islam out of respect for Muslims, because she's just like, I don't want to lie and I don't want to make a mockery of their religion by just converting for the sake of what they're saying. But it's like she just had to do what she had to do to survive. But like she also said, like she didn't take any of that with her because she didn't want to take anything back with her with what happened. And so once she kind of converts, they make this big kind of celebration, and they kill this sheep in honor of her conversion and everything. But she felt so uncomfortable, and she just
she's
said,
a vegetarian too.
also. Yeah, so she said, I didn't like the hypocrisy of the ritual. A week before, I had been worthless, and suddenly I had become their sister, because that's what it says in the Quran. Now I was alive and worthy in the eyes of God.
Yeah, but so now can you start to negotiate your release then?
Well, no. So she also talks a little bit about not hating her captors, and she said, and for what they've been putting her through, she said, what good would it have done me to darken my heart with hatred? And she says she had never hated anyone in her life. It's not in her nature, and I certainly wasn't going to start drifting down the grim river of bitterness and animosity. So like I like that idea. I think that'd be like very, very hard, but I like that idea of like she's not letting what they're doing to her change
how she's gonna
remember
react. That movie that we watched not too long ago?
Oh, yes.
Is it Unbroken?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. It's a story about a guy. Well, he's in World War II, and he gets taken. His plane gets shot down, and he gets taken captive by Japan, and then he's a prisoner of war for a long time, I think, anyways. And he was treated, I mean, absolutely horrifically in this prison for like a long time. And he forgave everyone, right? And obviously some people just would never be able to do that. But some people can, and I think you can end up being a better person for that if you can have forgiveness, which is it's like a very, very difficult thing to do. Well, especially even while you're in it, right? Yes. I think it's one thing after the fact to forgive somebody. It's something to forgive people while you're experiencing it. But I think having hate and those types of negative emotions, I think that would just even it would have just made it even worse.
Yes. And I think forgiveness isn't necessarily, I think it's for you doing the forgiving. It's not for the other people. Forgiveness is for you.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So, but
there was a one. It was a news story. I didn't finish it because it was on the radio when I was just driving somewhere. But it was a story of, somebody. I don't know if it was a hit and run or like a drunk driving, but they killed the other person's like son or wife or whatever, and they ended up reconciling in a way. Or no, I think it was worse than that, because it was like a murder. It was like a premeditated, like I murdered your son or I murdered your wife or something like that.
I feel like I've heard stories about this before.
And then not that they're best friends or whatever, but they did develop some type of relationship. So I mean, I couldn't, if someone murders you or the kids, and it just like, I don't think I'd ever be friends with that person or whatever, but I don't know. We could talk for days. I imagine the whole concept of forgiveness and everything, but it's important.
It is, yeah. The one thing she says though that kind of pisses me off is, and I hate when people, I can see it talking about forgiveness and trying to move past things, but we've seen this a couple other times, is like giving people a pass for what they've done.
Their behavior. Yeah, there's a difference between forgiving somebody.
Because she says, well, they don't have any education and they don't know any better. And this is just like what they're taught and indoctrinated with. It's the religion, like just like the rando people that are watching, the underlings that are watching her. And it's like, and so, but for like the leaders, she doesn't necessarily feel the same, because like they know what they're doing. It's just about money, right? So she understands that. But I'm just like, I don't really care. Those people still know. Having someone in captivity, I don't really give a shit. like right and wrong, guys. Like, come on, they know it's not right. You can't, regardless if you have education or not, I don't care. You know that doing this is wrong.
So that's interesting. It's an interesting point because she doesn't know whether they think it's right or wrong. Like, she doesn't know what they're thinking, you know. But also, imagine yourself, you're born into a place,
of course,
where everyone thinks a certain thing, and if you think differently,
you die.
They'll just kill you or whatever, right?
Yes.
So what are they going to do?
I understand.
Just be like, oh yeah, guys, this is horrible. We shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, okay, well, you're done, right? Or like, you know, leave the religion, you die, right? So
no, and I get,
you know, a lot of people are put into impossible positions of whether they believe in it or not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have recently been put in an impossible position, and we took our stand. So right, but our life is threatened.
Could have been, could be.
But you know what I mean, right?
I understand. I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know what I would do for the kids. Like if it was, you know, I had to do it, or someone would hurt the kids. Like I don't know.
Well, depends on what you mean by hurt, right?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that there are people that are put in no-win situations. It's not just as black and white as like, this is good, this is bad, and I have to stick to my morals. It's like, well, you know, I also don't want to die, you know?
I understand. So. It's complicated.
to say the least,
it's complicated.
But yeah, not to give a blanket pass to say that they knew what they were doing was wrong.
Like,
I'm sure they did know, but some people, especially the Lord, you got to do what you got to do to survive.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought, you know, that's just, it is what they're being taught. Like, you need to convert everybody. But it doesn't mean you need to, but kidnapping is different than trying to convert everybody.
Right. But imagine if you're taught this literally since you've been born and saying that this is the way.
Yeah. This is the way.
Then that's maybe in your mind, you literally think that that's good.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do. And you literally have been trained your whole life to think of other people that are not part of your religion that they're less than you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. No, and that's fair.
And a person that's, 15 years old, they're going around helping out. They're an underling. Is it their fault if they, if they were just totally indoctrinated to saying that this is right?
Yeah. No, it's fair. It's complicated, and But
still, I think if you get to the point where you're taking on like children, for example, like child soldiers or whatever, they're like actively having to kill people and they're seeing really bad violence. I think that they know, deep down inside that stuff's not right.
Yeah.
But if it's just like little things that just step by step, it's like, oh, well, we're just kind of holding them here.
Yeah.
We're not like, whipping them every day or whatever. Right. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Why are you talking about me? I'm not a psychologist. I'm a shrink. I don't know any of this stuff.
I know.
Oh, listen to me.
Yeah.
Just some random guy off the internet. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways.
So the next thing she knows, she's told to get on this motorbike and go with this other guy. And so they take her, they leave. Now, some reason I'm picturing Tom Cruise and whatever going down the highway, wind in the hair on the motorbike. Not even close. Not like that? No. So she gets onto another camp, and Luca's there. So she gets reunited with Luca. Then they go back to another camp that's like 6 hours away on motorbike or whatever. And so they're just kind of just like the happiness and joy at finally being reunited is just, it's awesome. And so he says that he has his new Muslim name is Suleiman. So they take them back to the camp. I was going to guess Muhammad, but no. So when he tells her he did try to escape and did not go well, and they beat the shit out of him and tied him to a tree without like water or a scarf or any like protection for like days to not do it again. So so they get back to this new camp, and they're not allowed to be with the other hostages because all the other hostages are men and they're married apparently. So they have their own kind of separate area where they have to be. And so, she even has to pick a new name as well, a Muslim name. And, but being together, obviously their morale boosted a little bit. And they were able to kind of help each other. and of course they were treated completely differently at this camp because they were now seen as Muslims. And so
why didn't they convert the other people?
What other people?
You said there's other prisoners that they're not allowed to go in with.
Yeah, so I don't know if some of those other prisoners converted or not. I don't know. So but they're still treated as prisoners, and so they had to give them their shoes every night, just so they wouldn't go away in the dark. And then they were given their water.
Go away in the dark.
They were given their water rations at the beginning of the day. So then by the end of the day, they just didn't have enough to maybe like take off at night when they weren't being guarded as well. So, but they try and come up with an escape plan. So when they were picking her up, when they picked her up on the way, Luca saw a truck pass north, and so he was thinking that was a highway to another city called Kidal. So he figures if he figures out what direction to go to try and get to this highway. And so she has an extra pair of shoes that they didn't know about that she kind of had in her bag with her, all of her poems. She managed to kind of keep a bunch of her poems as well. And so, so she makes him an extra pair of shoes out of whatever they have. And then each day they have like a separate gallon jug. So each day they just kind of put more water. They ration it. Yeah. So they can eventually.
And they hide it, I guess. So.
Yes. Yeah. And so it would be.
So it sounds like they have at least some flexibility to go around. Otherwise they'd be like, because there's no bars or anything, because they're just like in.
No, they're just like under a tree. They're just camping like under a tree. Yeah. So the only issue is like she's really weak, and it ends up like she has like worms. She's crazy cramps, abnormal bleeding. Like she's not well. They're also both like crazy skinny. So then they have to leave before they had kind of expected, because all of a sudden these winds come in, and apparently these winds, they only last for like 2 or 3 nights. And they know from like living in the desert for so long, they know how this environmental stuff works. The cycles or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And so the way the wind is, though, it'll erase their tracks, which is obviously really important. So, and they're trying to time it so that they have the most amount of darkness, so when the moon hasn't risen yet, so that they can get away. So they plan this whole thing out, which is really interesting too. I guess having lived that long in the desert, you just kind of know what it is. So that's kind of cool. So they leave. They get up, and he does his last prayer with the guys from the evening, and then they take off. And so they have all these issues though. So, and they don't know how far and how long it's going to take to get to this highway. They don't know. And so the lid on their water didn't tighten. It's not a hard seal. And so they lost it all. They lost a bunch of water, like a third of their water. And then so I forgot to tell you this part, which is crazy. This whole time she can't see. The whole time in captivity, she can't see because she didn't have glasses. She just had contacts. And so there came a point where she had to get rid of her contacts. Oh. So this whole time she's not seeing clearly. How bad's her vision? It's bad enough where she just can't. Yeah. So she can't see where she's walking. And so there's no moon. It's like pitch black. So she falls, she twists her knee on a rock like really, really badly. So she's like limping and trying to get through, and it's just like the worst pain ever. So finally, after walking for eight hours, they figured they must have traveled about 12 miles. They come across a road. They're not sure if it's the road that they were looking for, but they come across a road. So now it's starting to it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. Sun's rising. And so they find a place to hide in the bushes because they're afraid of if these guys are going to come and find them. They're going to know. Yeah. And so they manage to flag down a truck, and the truck stops for them, and they get in, and they speak different languages, so they're not really, they couldn't explain what was happening. But I think that the driver, and it looked like his dad, kind of knew what was happening. And so they were stopped by a Mujahideen guy. And so they blocked, so they couldn't see the faces of Luca and Edith. And then they called on a phone, and it's like they called someone else to another truck to kind of come behind them. So like these people were like, she calls them like their guardian angels for, being brave enough to take them. So eventually they get into Kidal, and they drop them off at a government building where there's like UN peacekeepers there. And she said like everything happened so fast after that.
Right.
They were taken to whatever little clinic they had in this little town, and their government, like both the Italian government and Canadian government, were notified. They were taken to a doctor, and then obviously they were questioned by the French army, who had people in there that were fighting against these terrorists that were there. And so then they go to the capital of Mali, which is Bamako, and then as soon as they land, it's like paparazzi everywhere, and it's just like so overwhelming because you've been so isolated for this whole time. It was just like, it was awful for her, well, for both of them. And this is in 2020.
Oh shit, eh?
And so it's like she gets,
they wouldn't even known anything about this shit.
No idea. And so she's like, they're doing like elbow bumps.
What the fuck
and
are you guys doing?
She's like, oh, I thought it was some weird, like some tradition, like some, traditional thing that they do. And then they tell her what's going on, and because everyone's in masks as well. And
like, what the fuck is
going on? Yeah. So.
Oh my God, could you imagine that sight? Just being like, what the fuck just happened to the world?
No.
It's like, take me back to.
No. So fucking crazy. What's crazy about this is the day that they escaped was March 13th, 2020. And I don't know if you remember this day, but I will never forget this day. It was Maya and it was our last girls' day because everything was going to shit. And I said, Maya, let's do a last girls' day.
That's why everything shut down.
Because I said, everything's going to shut down. So
let's go out.
Yeah, let's go out and do like our last girls' day. And we had like the best girls' day. It was amazing. We had like so much luck. We got like all these really awesome, because we were shopping, we got all this, like, we found like the best stuffy. We found all these really cool things. So, and then I was like, it's so weird to think that while me and my daughter are out just having the best day, these people are like escaping into freedom. It's just mind blowing.
It just puts everything into perspective.
It really does.
We complain about all kinds of different things that are happening in our lives here. And I'm putting this generally out there, especially people in North America or developed countries, that we don't have to worry about kidnapping or whatever, that we have it so good compared to so many people and what other people are living through. Sometimes it's good, I guess, to put that into perspective. Because if they wouldn't have escaped, who knows if they would have even ever gotten loose. Like, how many people have been kidnapped and are never seen or heard
those
from
3
again?
Women that she met had been in captivity for so long.
Years. And like, and a lot of times no one's gonna pay, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Or like families don't have money to pay. Like, we'll give us, what do you, $1 million? Like, where am I going to come up with $1 million or whatever they might be asking for?
And even governments, like, you give in and you pay a ransom. Well, then that just encourages them to keep doing it. So yeah.
That's not really, like, I mean, good for them for escaping. Like, Jesus.
I know.
But yeah, like.
Well, and the whole time I'm reading as they're escaping, I'm just like, my hands are sweaty because I'm just like, oh my God. Like, and she makes it, but it's just like the whole story.
I didn't even know that. I'm just listening to your story. I'm not even talking. I'm just listening to the story. Like, how's this going to end?
I know. So,
but obviously it ends. Well, I didn't know it was going to end in escape or whether it was going to be like the government's.
Pay the ransom.
The Trudeau government, they're going to do something.
Yeah.
That was sarcasm. The government doesn't do anything. That's crazy. What a crazy story.
So then, so of course, like the Canadian ambassador to Mali is there, and so they figure out a way to get them out of Mali. I
would like to know how long the Canadian government knew about her and what they did or what they didn't do.
I don't know. So, but then what happens is they suggest both her and Luca go together and like stay together and go to a hospital in Germany to kind of like have kind of like a week or something just to kind of like recover like after everything. But it sounds like the Italian government didn't want that to happen, and they came and said, no, you're going to go home to Luca. And so he had a choice, though. He could go to Germany with her or go home, and he decided to go home.
No,
which I don't
go home.
I don't blame him, but just like you feel really bad for her because she feels like really sad because it happens really fast that he goes. They don't have any real notice, so you feel kind of bad for her. But she goes on to Germany first and just has a week in a hospital and just like with like a psychologist and everything, and talks to him and just to recover. And I'm sure,
well,
like,
where's her family? Does she have family? I guess you don't talk about it, right? Does she? Do they go meet her in Germany or
no? Because of COVID, everything's fucking crazy.
Unbelievable.
So then
I
what happens is
I could kind of see it there at the beginning of COVID, where you know, people didn't know, like, is this a 10% deadly thing? Is it whatever? Or I mean, now we know it's like ridiculous that you wouldn't be able to go see someone who just experienced that. But anyways,
so then eventually, they do take her from Germany. They take her to Quebec, where her family lives, and so then they wanted her to do a 15-day quarantine.
Fuck yourself.
And so in one of the interviews she gave, she's like, I've been quarantined for 15 months.
Like, what do you think I just got? Like, oh fuck.
Yeah. So her mom quarantined with her because she's just like, are you fucking kidding me? So that's the story. So
oh my god.
I know.
Just the lack of compassion of someone who just goes 450 days or whatever in captivity, and they're like, you know, you gotta stay in your fucking house for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, the worms and whatever shit that I caught was a lot worse than fucking.
Well, this is it.
Anyways,
I don't know. Ridiculous. I don't know much about what has happened with her.
Yeah, where is she now?
I don't know.
Does she have any social media profiles?
None. And there was
with reason. Good reason too, probably.
I tried to look up if there was any podcasts that she had gone on, because her story's crazy. Mm-hmm. But there was.
When did she write this book?
2021.
Okay, so it's been a year.
There was only one podcast she was on, but it was a French podcast. So I couldn't listen to it. So
how long is it? Maybe I'll listen to it.
Yeah, I think it's like an hour and a half.
I could listen to it. When was it?
I'm not sure. I don't remember looking at the date.
Just send it to me, and then I'll listen to it, and maybe it's just her telling the story. As opposed to like, where am I now or whatever.
I guess I could put like translator on the YouTube screen too. I
guess the YouTube, the translator. I don't know if it works. Okay. I was investigating some translation when we had our conference. Because there was a speaker that was speaking just in French, and the translation was, it was like, you know, it's hit and miss in terms of how it would take the words. I mean, we take the words out of context, and would, especially if someone's talking really fast. Like, it's okay. The technology is getting a little bit better, but send me the podcast, and then if I have time, because I have so much time, I'll try to listen to it. And
it's about an hour and a half. So
I'll just listen to it at 1.5 speed, as I usually do.
I know. I'm obsessed with listening to things at 1.5 speed now.
You can't go back, because a podcast has 3 hours. Now you put it at 2 times speed, it's an hour and a half.
I was telling Nay, you gotta put, because he listens to the Morbid podcast too, and I'm like, put it on 1.5, it'll change your life.
Yeah. It depends on who it is. You can put it on 2, and then it's twice as fast, but then sometimes it's too fast. But it does depend. The only person is like Ben Shapiro.
I was just gonna say, you can't put it on Ben Shapiro. He's already so fast.
He's already on 2 times speed.
That's just how he operates. That's how he jogs, is 2 times speed.
But like my YouTube is almost default to 1.5.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll speed it up, sometimes I'll slow it down, depending on what it is. But it's like, I ain't got time for this.
I know. Yeah.
But I'm so glad that they have that, because it's
amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So her poems are really interesting as well. Like, it's a lot of like about obviously nature, because that's what she's seeing out there. And then the last part of the book,
or sand.
The last part of the book, her kind of last entry in the book is just like a letter to life, and just to being so grateful for what she went through, not what she went through, but like it's given her a different perspective, of course. It would.
I imagine that would change her whole perspective on a whole lot of things, you know. Like, it's one thing, it's great to meet other people and new cultures and whatever, but like, not every culture is sunshine and rainbows. As she found out, you know, there's some people that take, you know, their culture or their religion to such extremes to justify doing some horrible things.
But it also sounds just like the kind of person that she is. She was able to, she already had that kind of positive outlook on things,
which, you know, might have really helped her get through it, and helping her get through it after the fact, you know, the fact that she could have forgiveness and be like, you know,
exactly,
you know, one with nature. We're all kind of just doing this
Yes.
thing, and, you know, maybe not holding such animosity towards them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's a really good lesson, because, I mean, hopefully nothing ever happens like that to me or any of us or anybody in general. But if it happened to me, I mean, you just have to strive to be positive and not get broken, really, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Always plot to escape.
Yes.
Man, oh man.
I know.
That's crazy.
I know.
I'm just sitting here and just, I don't even know what to say, because the fact that other humans could do this to other humans, it's just
unthinkable. I can't.
You know,
I can't.
like the cruelty, the lack of humanity.
Yeah. The one thing she
I
did say is, like, they didn't, like, mistreat her besides kidnapping her. Like, she was never beaten. She was never raped.
Yeah.
Like, none of that, which I guess silver lining, but still.
Yeah. Well,
I think being held captive at all is horrible, but to being held captive in the fucking Sahara Desert on, like, and just like not even being in a like structure, just like out camping, basically.
Yeah, not like a house even, or like a shack,
like
just like little tents or whatever.
Under a fucking tree. Like, it's unbelievable to me. And like when she saw herself in the mirror at the hospital, it's like unrecognizable. So like her face is just, she's like, it was so wrinkled because she was so dehydrated. Like she just never had enough water.
Yeah.
They never gave her enough water. So yeah, it's a crazy story.
And did she find out what the demands were for her?
Not that
at least that she doesn't say.
Doesn't say. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
I know.
All right. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10 as a book, what do you think?
I give it a 6.
6.
Yeah. It wasn't the greatest book.
Is it what you thought it was going to be? Because this is quite different from what we normally read in terms of, it's not like an adventure that she goes on per se. I mean, she wanted to go on an adventure, but she ended up getting kidnapped, right?
But the reason why I wanted to read is just like, how are you able to be resilient enough to get through something like that? Like what makes a person able to get through it, and even just come through it with, like, she has such a positive attitude, and just like still this love for life, and this, you know, amazing outlook. Like, I think it's incredible. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's so many details that I don't know about, that I have questions about. Sure. So, but I just think that wasn't maybe the point of the book. You know, it was about how writing these poems as well, like, helped her through. Yeah. And I also think, like, the woman that gave her the pen and the paper to begin with said, well, you should write a book of your poems. You should publish your poems. Yeah. And so I think part of it is to honor that woman, because I'm sure that woman did not have long to live with the breast tumor.
They must know where they were. I mean, they were only walking for 8 hours. It's not like they're far.
No,
you know, they walked for 8 hours and then they got
there's a map in there that shows,
like, here's where we were.
Well, they were debriefed like hard by so many different people, by so many different governments. Military people too, I imagine. So because the UN is there as well. The French army is there. The Mali government wanted to know. Like, it was so much. So, but they were able.
Know if you want to know.
So they were able to. There's like a little map showing where, like, each of the different camps were that she was. So,
which is, I guess, why they were moving around as well too, right? Because
but there every once in a while, especially at the very beginning of her captivity, there would be drones overhead, and that's what they were like. The captors would like lose their shit and like leave immediately because they were so afraid of these drones. So
of course,
yeah.
And then on a scale of, well, I mean, there's no scale of 1 to 10 on one adventure. Do we want to do this? It's like, no, obviously not.
But it's even like, how do you think you would handle something like this? Maybe is the question.
How do you think you would handle this?
Not well. No? I mean, the forgiveness thing, that's interesting. I think a lot about that because there's other books we've read, and thinking about would you be able to forgive a person if you were in that situation? And I think that'd be really, really, really hard for me. Yeah. I think that would be a really difficult thing, and I think so highly of her or anyone who's able to. And I don't know how long it takes you to get to that point, and what you have to go through, what mental gymnastics you have to go through to get to that point. But I think it's so incredible when people are.
Yeah. I don't know if you have to do mental gymnastics to humanize the other person for what they did. You just need to.
Oh, I didn't mean it in like a derogatory way. I meant it like
I
because you were gonna have to go through so many thinking and so much many emotions and thoughts.
No, I understand,
stuff, so
because I think maybe some people they have to give explanations and reasons as to why someone's doing something bad to them in order to get past that. I'm saying I think you can still be like, well, that person is just an evil person or just whatever, but I still forgive them because
it's not about them.
It's about me.
It's about me.
Right. This is what I need to do.
Being
It
able
doesn't
to
matter
live.
what their motivation is or what their motives are.
Yes.
And what their beliefs are. This is what I believe and this is what I need to do to go forward.
Exactly.
And to be able to
get
move on from this spot.
Well, and even like to be able to live in that situation, like not knowing when the captivity is going to end or
that's another thing too. If you're in jail, it's like, well, you have a 10-year sentence. It's like, it's going to be 10 years where this is like,
there's never any information. She doesn't know if a ransom has been asked for or what negotiations are happening.
For me,
like
it'd be like, well, I have to think of escape because I'm just going to assume that I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Because why would you release somebody?
Yeah. And then especially after meeting those women, having been there for that long,
like,
it's like, no, I got to figure out a way to get out.
Yeah. And especially if it doesn't happen soon.
Yeah.
You know, and this is not like, especially if you're not like somebody that you know is valuable, that they would actually do like a hostage exchange.
Yeah.
Like you're just
some random
citizen that has literally no value to the government.
Exactly.
Or they're going to exchange it for like some guy that's high up in your organization. That ain't going to happen.
It's not going to happen. No.
So yeah.
So, and I think the other thing that would be really, really hard is just like, and I understand them converting to Islam because the boredom and the monotony, that more than anything would drive me crazy.
I mean, I would do it, but again, you're not actually doing it. You're just doing it for show, right?
Just doing it for survival.
Exactly.
Like, that's all it's going to be. So.
I mean, some people I can see why they wouldn't, because it'd be like, no, I'm standing my grounds and my beliefs. But then again, what's your goal? Is your goal to escape?
Yes.
Sometimes you have to do things, that you didn't think you'd have to escape, right? Do you want to get treated better? Do you want to get a little bit more leash, know, and then like more
trust,
trust, so that they have the time to even be able to escape. Well, and that's you got to play the game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, how do you think you'd do?
Well,
you're like the most resilient person I know, so I know you would have like no problem.
Well, I don't really know about. You'd just be like going camping for you. You'd love it.
You'd love it.
No, I mean, what do you mean? How do you think I do? Do you think I'd be able to forgive them?
No, afterwards? Or even just like survive it without.
Well, everyone you can survive it, right? Like, I think a lot of people are more resilient than you give them credit for. Yes. But I think that the thing would be, like, what would be my state of mind after it or during it? Mm-hmm. And I think I would like to think that it would keep myself in a more positive state of mind and to not just be angry all the time and to think about that forgiveness. And like I said, maybe focus more internally on what I can do to get myself out of the situation.
Yes.
As opposed to be like, oh, everyone, why are they doing this to me? Or you know what I mean? Yes. Like that kind of thought doesn't help the situation.
No.
But that's so easy for me to say sitting here in this chair, right? I'm sure there'd be times where if I was in that, I'd be like, you just want to get so angry that it's just going to like go like rear naked choke on somebody or whatever, right? And then, get beaten down, whatever, like this other guy, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I do. I hope I never have to find out.
Me neither.
But I was just thinking like David Goggins. He's like, is that all you got? He's like, this motherfucker's doing push-ups. We haven't fed him in 5 days. He's got no water. He's fucking...
Stay hard.
Oh, stay hard, motherfucker. It's like, oh, shit. It's like, fuck, man. He's carrying along. He's chopping down the trees. Who's going to carry the boats? Fuck, man. Goggins, she's crazy.
Calm down.
But I could see him like in a prisoner of war camp. He's like, motherfucker. It's like, beat me down some more. It's like, Jesus. Man, that guy is like a specimen. That's just, I mean, I would joke around, but that guy is fucking crazy.
He's like, amazing. Such a huge inspiration.
Stay hard, motherfucker. Stay hard. That's hilarious.
There needs to be like David Goggins skits, putting him in these like crazy situations.
Right.
Seeing how he would react.
Yeah, well, that's a really good idea. Because I'll have the shaved head. I could do some kind of David Goggins skit. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. That's a really good idea. I'm gonna start thinking of some shit. You just see like the captives like, motherfucker, what the fuck is this?
They end up being the captives.
Yeah, he's like, you guys, motherfucker, get down, give me 20. It's like, get down, Isaac, get down.
Whoa.
Fuck, man, that's a really good idea. I should do some funny skits like that.
So
that's hilarious. All right, well, I think we've devolved enough.
I think so.
From this topic.
I think so.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. As always, we really appreciate it. Check us out at odumandandrea.com.
Yes.
If you like the stuff that we do, we appreciate your support.
Absolutely.
And next week, well, I don't know what we're reading, but I'm sure it's going to be good.
One.
So I think you're excited for it.
Yes,
so
I'm
that's
excited
good.
for it. Yep.
So up top, nice one.
Crisp high five.
Crisp high five it is. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.